Now, iDoceo is great for keeping track of attendance and keeping notes on your students, but it can also completely replace your binder that you use for your mark sheets. You can also use iDoceo in these custom mark sheets to provide instant feedback for your students. The first thing we're going to do today is we're going to create a custom marking scheme. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go over here to grade type, so click on there. And that opens up the grade type screen. You can see there's lots of grade types that come with iDoceo, but we're going to create our own of middle school levels, 4+, 4, 4-, etc. So I'm just going to click on the add button up here. And it asks us if we want a number-based grade system or a text-based grade system. We're going to go ahead, I know technically our levels are numbers, but we're going to select text-based grades. That opens up this screen here. You're going to give your new grade configuration a name, so it's called mine middle school grade levels. Type in the grade text in here, so I'm going to start with 4+, and the percentage. I'm going to use the midpoints that we're supposed to use for the report card. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. So I've got 4+, and the mid-grade point for 4+, 90%. And the next thing I'm going to do, I want to create a custom color scheme so that when I enter a grade of 4+, that it also changes the color of the cell. So I'm going to click on that little color swatch there. And I'm going to select a blue color to mimic the report card system. So it gives blue for level 4s, it does green for level 3s, yellow for level 2, and red for level 1. One important step to remember is that I have to click on this button right up here. And that button, what that does is it tells iDoceo that the color that I choose to apply it to the cell that the number is in, not the actual text of the number itself. So that will change the actual cell color, this color, not the text of 4-, because it'll be really hard to see 4- in that color. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of mark sheets. So I teach French. So first I'm going to create, for my strand of writing, I'm going to create a writing mark sheet and click OK. And I'm also going to create an oral mark sheet as well. Now I also want to create a specific rubric for keeping track of marks for a specific presentation. So I'm going to also create a new tab, and I'm going to call it Presentation, for recording presentation marks. So as you can see over here, it has created new tabs for me. So a tab for my writing marks, and a tab for my oral marks. So now I'm going to go into that presentation tab that I made earlier, and I'm going to create a rubric for a presentation project that includes a writing component. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a rubric where I'm going to record how a student does on a project so that I can then enter those marks automatically into my writing and oral tabs. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create columns for the different criteria of my project. So I'm going to go up here and click on the New Column button. Opens up this window. I'm going to give it a title of Voice Clarity, and I'm going to assign this column the new grade configuration that I created earlier. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go up here and click on Editor, and then I'm going to scroll down and pick Grade Selector, because I want this to be a graded column. Once I hit Grade Selector, I need to tell it what grade type I want to use, so then I'm going to click Grade Type. And I'm going to scroll down the list till I find my new grade configuration, middle school levels, and then I'm going to click OK. Next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to assign a color to this column, because I'm going to have columns for oral marks and columns for written marks. So I want to separate the different types by color. So I'm going to click on the color swatch here, and I'm going to select the color, and then I'm going to click OK. Okay, so then I have my voice clarity column there. It comes up in a nice yellow. And the great thing about this is when I create new columns, I don't have to go through all those steps again. All I have to do is click New Column, give it a title, and it will have the exact same properties as my previous column, both in grade type, width, and color. Okay, so now I have all of the columns for the oral criteria: voice clarity, eye contact, visuals, pronunciation, and expression. With all those 5 criteria together, they'll get an overall oral mark. Now I want to create columns for the written portion of this project, and I want to select a different color. So I'm going to go ahead and click the new column button. Okay, like I said before, it will have all the same characteristics of previous columns built, but now I'm going to go ahead and select a new color for it. So all the characteristics of these columns will be the same except for the color. I just gave it a new color. And then I did a third category of column here, one for overall marks. So an overall oral presentation mark and an overall written report. However, now that I look at this, I've decided that I really want this presentation mark to be over here at the end of the oral criteria. So I want to move this column, and that's really easy to do. All I have to do is press and hold at the top of this column, brings up this menu, and I want to go ahead and click on Tools, and that brings up this menu here. All I have to do is click and hold on this little section of the column here, and I can drag it to wherever I want, and then click Done. There, so now my overall oral column is next to the other oral criteria. So I'm almost ready to start punching in some marks. Okay, so I'm going to start putting in some marks. I'm going to pretend like the student is in front of me, giving me their presentation for a mark, and I can go ahead and punch in marks as they're giving their presentation. So all I have to do is double tap on the cell next to their name, and this grade selector pops up, and then I just have to scroll down to the mark that I want to assign to their voice clarity. So give that a 3+, and then click on Save. So then I go ahead and fill in the other columns under the oral presentation, and then decide on an overall mark for that student. Now that all the marks are here in my rubric, I want to assign the overall mark to my oral mark tab. And I could just go into that tab and manually enter the marks, but I'm going to show you a much easier and quicker way to do that. I'm going to click and hold at the top of the column here. It brings up this menu again. And this time I'm going to click on Copy. I want to copy this column directly into my oral tab. When I click Copy, this menu comes up. So I want to select a destination for it. So I'm going to select the Oral tab. And this is the real good part. It asks me if I want to make a simple copy or a linked copy. A simple copy will just directly copy whatever is in the column right now and send it over to that tab. But a linked copy will link all of the changes I make in this column and represent it automatically over here. So I'm going to click on Linked Copy. So here is my Oral Marks tab. It has entered the mark for Bobo the Clown here as 2+. And you see up here, there's a little link icon here telling me that this column is linked to another section of my iDoceo. So now I'm going to go ahead and enter in marks for another student who is excellent at everything, and assign an overall mark for the oral presentation of 4+. And now I'm going to go back here and click on the Oral tab, and you see it automatically updates this column here. So when I enter in all of my students' marks on my rubric sheet, those overall marks will automatically carry over here into my oral mark sheet. Now, here's another cool thing. If you're a French teacher like I am, you have more than 1 or 2 classes that you teach. Most of us do teach more than just one class. So I don't want to go ahead and create this whole rubric page for every single class that I teach, and I don't have to. All I have to do is go over here to the tab on the side, press and hold on it to get an additional menu. And again, I'm going to go ahead and click copy because I want to copy this page to my other classes. And when I do that, I get this option here. Where do I want to copy it? Do I want to copy it somewhere into this class, or do I want to copy it to other classes? So I'll click on to other class. You get a complete list of your other classes, and here's the best part, just copy it to all classes. So then that will copy this entire rubric page to all of your other classes, so you don't have to do it one by one for every class. Now, as I mentioned earlier, not only can you use iDoceo to record all of your marks and assessments for ease of creating report cards, but you can also use it for giving feedback to students in a very quick fashion. And I'm going to show you how to do that now. In my marking rubric up here, I can add comments into each one of these cells if I want to. I'm going to look at this one right here where student got a 1+ on their pronunciation. I want to add a specific comment to explain what happened and perhaps give some ways that student can improve. So I'm going to double click on that cell with the mark. It brings up my grade selector again, and then I'm going to look right up here. There's a little speech bubble. I want to click on that. That's where I can put in some annotations. So I click up there and I can put in some text to give the student some feedback on where they went wrong and some ways that they can improve in the future. I'm going to click on done. And as you see up here, it puts a little black triangle. You can hardly see it, but it's there to indicate that there is a note in this cell. Now, what I want to do is I want to generate a report that I can send to my student that will include all of their marks and the annotations that I've written for them. So in order to do that, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to double click on the student's name, and that brings up this screen here. This is where all the student information is, any notes I've attached to them, their attendance. What I want is the summary. Click on the summary tab here, and I'm going to click up here on the little gear to set up a report. Once I do that, it brings up the screen asking me to add columns, so I'm going to click on the plus button to add columns. And I've decided I'm not going to do a report on the entire project. I just want to include everything about the oral presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and click all of the columns that are for the oral presentation and the overall presentation mark. This is somewhere assigning colors to specific categories of mark really helps, because all I have to do is look for the yellow columns and click them all off. So I'm going to go ahead and click done. Then it generates a report for me. So I have all the breakdown of how the student did in each of the criteria for the project and their overall mark. Now I want to send it to them. So I just go up here and click on the share button. And that opens up this menu right here. There's a lot of options you can include here. The summary, which is this information right here, I definitely want included. I also want to include any annotations, so that note that I put in under their pronunciation mark will be included if I click off this mark here. And you also might want to include attendance as well in your reports. But for this one, I'm just going to do a summary of the mark and any annotations and click OK. Now, I can instantly email it to the student if I have an email associated with their account, or if they have a parent email, I can automatically email it to their parents as well, or to both. I can also click on Open In to get more options, because iDoceo has really good integration with other apps like Edmodo. So one of the options when I click on Open In is Edmodo. If I want to send this report to my student in an Edmodo message, I just click on Edmodo, it automatically opens the Edmodo app, and I can send this report directly to my student through Edmodo. And here's what the report looks like. So the student gets to see how they did in each of the different criteria of the project, and the note that I included under their pronunciation and their overall mark. So that's all that we have for this tutorial today. I know it was a long one, but I hope you found it very useful, and I hope you're ready to throw away that mark binder. See you next time.